My name is Justin. I'm an alcoholic. Hi. I've been through the process with the help of a Big Book Step Study sponsor. He's done the steps the same way. The help of a higher power I call God that I developed a relationship with during this process. I've made some amends, and I practice the steps every day. Thank you, James, for asking me to be here. It's always scary, right? But it's always feel like, when I got here about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, the people that I heard, I knew were telling the truth, Like when I sat here and I didn't know anything about the steps, and I didn't know anything about AA or anything, but I knew from the way people talked at this meeting, and I went to a lot of meetings. I went to meetings all over Worcester. I didn't know the city, and I still to this day, I only know where things are if it's near a meeting that I went to. I still use that as my reference point for things. And so this place is really important to me, and I'm happy to be asked to speak. So steps 8 and 9. It says that we made a list of persons to all we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And then we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So this list, the instructions I had this was from my 4th step. I had a list of people that I had problems with, people, places, and institutions. And institutions and principles. And my list of persons that I had harmed started with my family, my immediate family, my wife, my brothers, my parents. And then it was the closer you were to me, the worse it was, the worse those people were affected by my drinking. And at that time, coming here and starting to look at this stuff, by the time you get to steps 8 and 9, I was very acutely aware that I had done a lot of damage. I had done a lot of damage to those relationships, and I was actually not dreading apologizing to them and making amends, especially when you really looked at it and you said, the people that really tried to help me were the ones who got it the worst. The people who tried to talk you out of drinking. My mom would show up at my house with a thing of soup and be like, you got to do something about this, and I'd say, yeah, I will, yeah, I know. But, so to me, getting to that point I was kind of happy to do, I was scared, I'm scared to do this, but I'm happy to do that too, I just feel like I thought I would feel better, and I did. And when it talks about in the writing here, we go out to our fellows and repair the damage we've done in the past. And for some people, specifically my wife, when I was she was waiting for this amends. She was waiting for it. For months, and I think she really thought it was going to make everything go away, I was going to say some magic word and say I'm sorry, and all the stuff, the 18 years of craziness was just going to be wiped away, right? And I had a pretty good feeling after working with a sponsor that wasn't what was going to happen, but she did not know that, right? So for me, I'm sitting there and I'm I made the amends, and it was an extremely powerful thing. But you could tell she's looking around, waiting for the lights to start flashing or something to happen, some miracle has occurred, and it didn't immediately change anything. But one of the things that it talks about in here too was that at this point, she knew that it wasn't just words, at this point, I had already been, I don't know, it was almost probably 2 years, right? 18 months, something like that. So you get to this point, and she saw me, I had quit drinking before, plenty of times. But she I think, saw different behavior in this time, where I was meeting with a sponsor. I was going to Panera and holding his hands in Panera and taking a third step, like all of that stuff. Like, she was aware that that was going on. Like, she knew I was doing that. So I do think that, and it talks about this being more than words. I forget exactly what it says here. Let's see. That she saw a difference in behavior. I mean, to me, somebody explained to me one time, they said that an apology without a changed behavior is just a manipulation. And I thought that was really good, right? Because that's true for me. And that's because I've manipulated everything. I'd say, I'm sorry, I'm wicked sorry, I'll never do that again. And I could be good for a little bit. But when it really came down to apologizing for the things that I had done, to me, it gave it more weight because they had seen a different person. They had seen a person that had some tools, you know, to deal with my problems for the first time instead of anger. But anger's still there too, but I work on that, you know. And most of the anger is fear with me. But I think as I continued to go through my list of people, it was my parents and my brothers, and like I said, those are the people who really primarily were the ones who were like trying to stop me, you know, trying to get me to quit and see, you know, that there was, you know, a different way of doing things. And again, I was really happy to speak to them about that, and I was happy that I could start to be a part of their lives. It says that that the spiritual life is not a theory, right? That this, to me, that they could see that I had a spiritual solution to my problems. They could tell that I had a spiritual solution to my problems. And as it says, he's a long way from making good to the wife or parents for years he's shockingly treated. I mean, to me, the making good was just not doing what I used to do, you know? For me, it was being a different person that could be relied upon, that was somebody that could be counted on to be thinking about other people, or when something bad happens in a family, to be present and to be a part of their lives. So I do feel like, for me, there were some things, some people at that time that I was not willing to make amends to, and most of that was because of like work situations, and I had to wait until I was no longer employed with the place that I was, and then I had to go back and make some amends with people. So I do think that there was a way to prepare for that too, and I talked with my sponsor about that, and one of the things that bits of advice he gave me was that it would be good, if, especially somebody that you might not know how to find them, you might not know how to locate them, but writing out the amends in advance. And then if you happen to run into them in a parking lot, and you happen to see them in a grocery store or something, you say, hey, you got a second for a cup of coffee? You're not starting from scratch saying, what did I do? You know, like, and for me, that was very helpful. And especially where if I didn't have a situation where you could make a full amends, you could still say you're sorry to somebody for something, you know. And I had that situation with a former boss called me up and was asking me a question about something that I did years ago. And just on the phone with him, I had already known if I ever ran into this guy what I wanted to say. And it was funny when I started telling him, you know, I was apologize for my behavior and stuff like that. And he started bringing up all this other stuff I didn't remember, right? And I was like, I don't even remember that one. Sorry for that too. And then other times, I brought up with people and they didn't know what I was talking about. Like, they didn't remember it. And I had a friend who was, he was dreading an amends. I mean, he didn't sleep. I was talking to him about it, and he went there and started talking to this person about it, and they literally had no idea what he was talking about. And I just, that was before I had even done this. So that experience, this other person's experience, and that statement in here that, you know, in 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens, and the man admits his own fault, or doesn't remember, even what you're talking about when I was apologizing for something that I did. So I feel like all the thought, like everything else, like I always thought I knew what was going to happen in the future. I know what's going to happen tomorrow. I know what my boss is going to say next week. It's just the way my brain works a little bit. And I was sure that when I was talking to my parents, all the things that they were going to say, and my brother, all the things that they were going to say were going to go like this. And it went nothing, like I thought, nothing, not one part of it. Other than the fact that I knew it would feel good to say what I said. And I also knew that no matter what they said, that was all I could do. All I could do was, as I say, keeps my side of the street clean. We're just trying to not be like, well, I did this because you did this, and you remember what you did. Like that wasn't going to be a part of it. And I think that part of the process where, because that did happen in one of them, someone did say, something that it was like, I wanted to say something back, and I just said, you know what, that's not what this is about. This is about me keeping my side of the street clean. This isn't about anything else. And keeping it within that kind of a frame was very, very helpful to me. And I think here when it says that there are chances of domestic troubles, right? The domestic troubles were different now, we still had domestic troubles even after my amends, but they were different kind of troubles. They weren't like, they were like miscommunication kind of problems. It wasn't like, I was speaking a different language than she was now, my wife was. And I was kind of focused on, my side of the street, and she was also still focused on my side of the street, which made things not so easy. So that idea of we don't argue, that I learned here was applying that not just during amends, but in a lot of parts of my life where you just sometimes you just don't say anything, and you say, okay, I'm content with knowing that I did what I could do to own my behavior. If I say something stupid, which still happens quite a bit, that I could own my behavior and try to move on. And I ask for help with those things. At the end of my day, when I'm reviewing my day and thinking about my behavior, sometimes I do at that time. I mean, that's not the step, but it's part of this process. You learn how to try to keep things in the day, and if you apologize for something, if you realize you did something wrong, apologize for it immediately. And that was part of this amends process where I was, as I said before, like they had already seen that change. They had already seen me apologizing for things and trying to do things differently and trying to think differently. So when I spoke to them about this, I think they knew it was different. But I think they also, in some ways, thought the same thing my wife did, like it was going to make everything go away. Like it was just going to make, he said these magic words. And I think in my experience, there was still this long period of reconstruction ahead, right? Where I was kind of building, these were the same people, but the nature of my relationship with them changed quite a bit because I had changed so much, which was a miracle, right? That I had changed as much, but it was all of a sudden for them, up was down and down was up. And they're dealing with this whole new person, with this whole new set of ideas and behaviors. And that's not always easy. And most of the people in my life, there's just a lot of addiction in my family. There's there's some sobriety. I have relatives that are sober, but I was the first person in my family for generations that actually had any recovery. Like it was all just, people could quit drinking, but there was no recovery, there was no process, there was no, apologies for stuff. So when I was doing an amends with my father, who was an alcoholic, and he's been sober for a while, he was like, should I have done this with you? I'm like, I said, it's probably not a terrible idea, You know, maybe, I don't know, go through a process, learn some skills, you know what I mean? But he never did that, you know, and again, that was about, you know, me keeping my side of the street clean, me doing what I was taught from my sponsor, you know, and again, this process of owning your behavior really became a part of my life. It wasn't just during amends, it's anywhere. You know, I could say something stupid at the grocery store, you know, hold the door for someone, they don't say thank you and say, oh, you're welcome, or something dumb, you know, like that kind of thing was exactly how I operated, you know, and trying to avoid saying something stupid. But if I said something stupid, immediately apologizing for it, you know, not waiting hopefully until, you know, it gets to the point where I'm blaming somebody else for my behavior again, because that was something I worked very hard to not do anymore. So I like the part in here when it talks about the people in the storm cellar, and like, isn't it grand that the wind stopped blowing? And I do feel like that was, for me, a motivating thing to say, you know, you can't just gloss over this stuff. You can't pretend like you didn't say what you said. You couldn't, you know, pretend that you did what you did. You didn't do any of those things. It was really felt good to me personally to own those things, to go to those people and to be accountable for it. And I felt like that accountability kind of helped me say, I never want something like that to happen again. I never ever want to ever put those people in a situation where they had to try to stop me again, you know? Where they had to be like worried about me again. Like, I know my mom worried about me. I mean, she's a mom. Mom's probably worried forever, right? I'm a dad, I'll worry forever. But I think it's a different kind of worry when they were worried about like you drinking, because they don't know if you're gonna come home, or they, you know, who knows what's gonna happen. And I think that they finally got some peace, you know, and if I ever went back, I would take that away from them too, right? And that to me is a very powerful thing. As much as it's powerful for me to come in here and seeing, you know, working with newcomers or stuff and seeing like the rawness of somebody who's right at the beginning of starting, you know, of getting into AA and seeing a whole new vocabulary and it's one of the things I really like about the beginners meeting is that this really reminds you, because I came in here on a Saturday morning less than 24 hours after getting out of a treatment center, and a lot of people come in here like that. And for me, that's one of the most powerful things in the world, that you're coming into a place where, just like when I came here and I heard people speaking the truth, and I heard people who had a solution and they had a plan and there was steps. And at the beginning of the process, all I had to do was what I was asked to do at that point. You know, I wasn't worried about step 9 when I was at step 2, you know. And I think most of that stuff translated to me to building, you know, a thing where you're living in the day, not in the past. But it made it easier for me to not live in the past when I was owning my mistakes that I made at the time, you know, not having to worry about going back. Oh, I'm gonna have to go back to them in 2 weeks from now and apologize for that email I sent. Apologizing, as soon as I realized I shouldn't have sent the email, I apologized for it. And for that, I am truly, truly grateful that while I can't expect to not make mistakes, I definitely know what to do when I do. And I know how to keep it about my behavior and not theirs. And apologize for what I said and say, well, I wouldn't have said that if you didn't say this. And it didn't work for me doing that kind of a thing in the old days. But for me, just saying I'm sorry and worrying about my side of the street works everywhere. Everywhere that works. Bosses, wives, husbands, whatever, you know. Apologizing for my behavior, not focusing on their behavior. Then I take that at the end of the day and I ask for help with it. Help me have the patience to, you know, to not lose my temper, to not say stupid things, and I find that when I take that stuff to my higher power, God, I do a lot better. I do a lot better in my days. I apologize less. right? Because I don't say as many dumb things when I get enough sleep and I get up in the morning and I do my prayers and I do that kind of thing. I feel like I'm a better person to be around. I'm a better person to work with. I'm a better person to be in a car with, whatever it is. So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to go back and try to begin to that owning my behavior and starting that new period of reconstruction and building new relationships with people that I had known for a very long time, and starting off new relationships on the right foot, without a backlog of stuff. And for that, I am truly grateful. I'm truly grateful to AA in general, but specifically to Big Book Step Study, because I went to a lot of meetings, and I heard a solution here that I did not hear anywhere else. And the other part, and the open AA was great, and I needed that too, and I still love it, but there was to me, a solution was here. And I heard people every week coming in here talking about mistakes they made during the week, because they forget, that those behaviors can come right back like that. As soon as I'm not watching them, as soon as I'm not on the beam doing what I'm supposed to be doing, that fear comes right back. The fear comes back, the anger comes back, and the mouth comes back. And that's not helpful. So I'm extraordinarily grateful to AA. I'm grateful to all of you that were here when I got here. I'm grateful for James for being my friend and asking me to speak here. And thank you all for listening.